welcome back to Waiting in Laodicea. I'm your host, A.T. Martinez, and today I want to take a look at the movie series God's Not Dead. I'm going to start out with the very first one, and that's what we're going to cover today, the very original God's Not Dead. I believe it was... Let me see if I can get my tech people to look up when that actually was first released. And while he's doing that, let me go on. I'll give you a brief summary of what the plot was, how it developed, and then I'm going to go ahead and talk about what this show, what it was trying to get across. Okay? First off, what you have here is a student, brand new freshman student in college. In order to fill his requirements, he has to take a philosophy class. He takes a philosophy class.
2014.
Okay, I was just informed that this one was released in 2014. I believe the second one was released in 2016. The third one was released in 2018. But we'll check those when we get to those episodes. So he's in college. He has to take a philosophy class. He takes an intro to philosophy class, which is being taught by none other than Hercules, or Captain Dylan Hunt, Kevin Sorbo. I know I don't pronounce his last name correctly, and I do apologize. But Kevin Sorbo plays a professor who has decided that God is dead. And he asks his class to all agree so they don't have to spend their time discussing any philosophical concepts about God. Now, I majored in philosophy, and not one point in my classes did anybody try to tell me God is dead. But there are a lot of philosophers who do feel that way. And the professor named quite a few of them that do, including Friedrich Nietzsche and Ayn Rand. He also included Foucault and a few others, but I don't really like Foucault at all. But that's neither here nor there. Now, the student, who is a Christian, could not do the one thing the professor asked all the students to do. The students were asked to sign a note saying, God is dead. He couldn't do it. It was against his beliefs. And so he was forced by the professor to defend the existence of God. Now, what is interesting about this is there are a lot of atheists out there who want you to defend God's existence, and yet they can't prove God doesn't exist. Now, granted, trying to prove a negative is impossible. But the student proceeds to give us several episodes or segments where he is defending God's existence and showing how the arguments against God's existence are pretty weak. They fall apart when you apply logic and reason to them. And we end up with a final confrontation between the professor and the student, where we finally get the truth. The professor isn't an atheist, he's an anti-theist. He hates God. Now, you can't hate something that doesn't exist. This was his final rendition, and the professor, whose life has fallen apart around him, and the student, who was his personal target, all of this comes in, and we start seeing, well, there's a lot of subplots throughout this show, like the fact that the professor is dating a Christian who was a student of his. No longer a student, but she's still in the same university, so that's kind of frowned upon. We have a Chinese student who is a foreign exchange student from the People's Republic of China. And we have a young Muslim girl who basically comes to Christ and gets kicked out of her own home because of doing so. All of these three plots here tie in with being introduced to the preacher and his friend from, I believe it's Nigeria, who is a visiting preacher who was there to visit him. And, well, to make a long story short, the student challenges the professor. The professor something's bothering him. He starts to see maybe something isn't going right. And he's heading down to go see his girlfriend, who is at a newsboy conference. Or ex-girlfriend, I should say, because she broke up with him. The Newsboys, if you don't know who they are, they're a Christian band. They do some very great work. And he's on his way down to see them. And in the process, he gets hit by a car. And sitting right there on the side of the road at the intersection is the two preachers. And they come to him, and then right before they die, the man dies, he comes to the Lord. This is the plot overall of God's Not Dead. What it's talking about is the idea in society that atheists are pushing, which is not just they have a different view, it's that you can't have your view. Now notice the professor did not say that if you believe in God, that's fine, it's your own viewpoint, let's move on. No, he said you can't have that view because it's wrong. He insulted people that believed in God. He treats Christians the same way Christians have treated people for centuries. It's payback for the past. And he's doing this because he's angry at God. He hates God because God took his mother. Now, there are many, many, many people out there who have come to the conclusion that God is not real because God did not do something they wanted done. Or because God let some evil happen. Now, it's not a satisfying answer on why this happens. The student in the story says, why is evil allowed? If God is so great and God is so all-powerful, why does evil exist? His answer was very simple. Free will. God doesn't want robots. By giving us each the option, the choice, to choose to follow him or not, God, by granting us free will, allows evil in the world. It's a short-term problem for a long-term payout. By having evil in the world, and we get to choose, hopefully with some knowledge, between following him and following evil, those that follow Christ do so voluntarily. They're not robots. And that was what God was after. That's part of his plan. Is it unsatisfying answer? Yes. Does it put everything perfectly into perspective? No. Because sadly, free will is not a perfect concept. Free will has a lot of drawbacks. And one of those is that it allows evil in the world. And because evil exists in this world, good people die. Now, overall, the movie God's Not Dead was fantastic. If you are a new believer, an old believer, anywhere walking along your walk with Christ, buy the movie. Watch it. It's something that you can rewatch and love every minute of it. I mean, it's a very compelling, very powerful story. It's so amazing how so many people turned out to support the student. And, I mean, not in the classroom, but talking about him. To the point it actually made supposedly the news in the story. And the newsboys actually brought it up. Pretty good, huh? It's a wonderful show. I definitely would give it 2 thumbs up. I think it's worth your time, worth your effort, and it'll make you feel alive. So this has been my review on God's Not Dead. Do I recommend it? Wholeheartedly. Go out, buy the movie, watch the movie, rent the movie. If your friend has it, get a copy of the movie. Do whatever you need, because you're going to love this show. And it'll help you in many ways. because it's going to show you the fact that the atheists are out to get you because they're mad at God. So, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Our next episode will be covering the second one and then finally the third one, along with, of course, our big episode coming out, which continues from the one before. It's about standing up for God. And this is an applicable series of movies because the student had to stand up for his beliefs. And he did it in the right way. He was not rude. He was not disrespectful. He was courteous at all times. And the one who wasn't, the one that was belittling and condescending and rude, was the professor. It's something to learn from. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe if you have not subscribed. And get your friends and your relatives and your neighbors and your members of your small group, the member of your churches to subscribe. Remember, this is the easiest and most cost-effective way of supporting this ministry. Now, if you want to actually directly support this ministry, you can do so by going through any of the links that are provided in the description of this episode. You can go through this channel itself by clicking on the donate button, or you can become a patron, and that information is listed in the channel description. Whatever you choose to do, and if you don't like any of those options but you still want to help out in some way, send me an email and we'll talk about it. Last but not least, when concerning that email is there for you to reach me and talk to me about whatever you want. Now, if you're going to sit there and chew me out, that's my answer to you is God bless you and may you have a great week. And I'll probably send that message back to you. But if you want to have an actual